This chart shows the breakdown of Kenya's national budget. Right now, a massive 25% is carved out for a single sector, education. That money is specifically earmarked to fund the Competency-Based Curriculum, or CBC. To manage and refine a system of this scale, the state recently convened the 2023 Presidential Working Party on Education Reform. It's an urgent effort to evaluate how well this financial investment is actually translating into student success. Tweaking the classroom experience is a constant process in Kenya. The current mandate is the latest intervention in a continuous, 6-decade effort to engineer the ideal educational system for the country. A national curriculum is the master plan for a country's economic survival and social stability. When Kenya gained independence in 1963, the new government inherited a highly fractured, racially segregated society. They also faced a severe shortage of the trained workers necessary to build a functioning, modern economy. The immediate response was the 1964 Omende Commission. Its primary objective was to abolish racial segregation in schools and create a single, unified educational framework for all citizens. The commission laid out 6 broad national goals, heavily emphasizing national unity and respect for cultural heritage. It also decentralized the daily administration of primary schools to local parent-teacher associations, placing management directly in the hands of local communities. By dismantling segregated learning and establishing these core goals, the Omende Commission set the philosophical baseline that continues to guide Kenyan education today. By the late 1970s, the country faced a new demographic crisis. Large portions of the rural population moved to the cities, which quickly resulted in high levels of youth unemployment. Investigators for the 1976 Gachathi Report looked into the causes of this crisis and found a glaring disconnect. The education system completely ignored both Kenya's cultural heritage and the actual physical environments where young people were growing up. To fix this, the Gachathi Report, and later the 1981 McKay Report, pushed for a production-oriented system. They argued that schools needed to prioritize practical projects over written, summative exams. This drive for practical skills peaked with the 1988 Kamunge Report, which directed schools to make agriculture and business education compulsory. The goal was to build a self-reliant workforce capable of thriving in rural areas. But there was a severe historical barrier to this plan. For years, agricultural work had been used in schools as a form of punishment. Because the curriculum designers ignored this deep-seated cultural stigma, students fiercely resisted the exact subjects intended to help them. At the same time, the government's budget was stretching to its breaking point. The state simply could not afford the ballooning costs required to equip schools for these ambitious, hands-on mandates. This graphic illustrates the controversial solution proposed by the Kamunge Report, cost sharing. The government drastically reduced its financial input, transferring the massive cost of education directly onto the shoulders of parents and local communities. A decade later, the 1999 Coage Commission attempted another structural overhaul. They proposed the Totally Integrated Quality Education and Training Framework, or TIACET, designed specifically to replace the rigid, high-stress 844 schooling system. However, the government reviewed the TIACET framework and immediately rejected it. The National Treasury lacked the funds to implement the proposed changes. The primary barrier to improving the Kenyan education system has rarely been a lack of pedagogical vision, but rather the strict mathematical limits of the country's finances. By the 2010s, new directives emerged. The promulgation of the 2010 Constitution and the goals outlined in Vision 2030 required Kenya to stop treating students as basic manpower and start developing them as critical human capital. This exposed the critical flaw of the existing 844 system. The system had devolved entirely into a high-stakes exam factory, strictly measuring rote memorization rather than actual practical comprehension. The 2012 Odhiambo Report replaced the 844 model with a new framework: 2 years pre-primary, 6 primary, 3 junior, and 3 senior secondary. This structure allows older students to specialize in distinct paths tailored to their unique skills. The approach completely reverses the state's educational strategy. Rather than penalizing students for the subjects they struggle with, the curriculum focuses on identifying and actively developing the specific talents they actually possess. In the short term, these structural updates have yielded clear results. Enrollment figures have surged across all grade levels, and the framework now directly supports the economic targets of Vision 2030. Yet, as the 2023 Presidential Working Party on Education Reform pointed out, structural changes are only half the battle. Successfully integrating concepts like value-based education and getting parents fully engaged remains a highly complex logistical challenge. Achieving actual societal transformation demands an ongoing, rigorous negotiation between the government's highest aspirations and the grassroots financial realities of its citizens. A national curriculum is never truly finished. It requires constant iteration and debate, serving as the living document used to draft the next version of the country itself.